Arc'teryx, the jacket in the mist. Imagine this. You're hiking alone in the Pacific Northwest. Mist curls around the trees. The wind is howling. Your phone has no signal, your boots are soaked. And then you hear it. A scream? No, it's the sound of a zipper. You turn around, but no one's there. Just a sleek black jacket hanging from a branch. It's dry, warm, practically glowing. You try it on, and for the first time in hours you feel invincible. Congratulations. You've just been initiated into the cult of Arc'teryx. Welcome to the Fashion Code, where we unpack brands that live between style, performance, and legend. Today, we're diving into Arc'teryx, the outerwear brand that went from making climbing harnesses in Canada to becoming a high-fashion streetwear flex in New York and Seoul. This is the story of how a brand named after an extinct dinosaur bird became the uniform of tech bros, gorpcore kids, elite alpinists, and surprisingly, rappers. But Arc'teryx isn't just a brand. It's a myth, because in a world of loud logos and fast fashion, Arc'teryx whispers, "I've been to the summit. Have you? Let's break it down." The year is 1989. While most people are obsessed with floppy disks and neon ski jackets, a group of Canadian climbers in British Columbia have one goal: make gear that doesn't suck. Their company is called Rock Solid, and it specializes in climbing harnesses so advanced they look like alien tech. But in 1991, they renamed themselves Arc'teryx, after Archaeopteryx lithographica, the first known bird to evolve from a dinosaur. Because yes, if your brand doesn't sound like a lost Jurassic Park villain, what are you even doing? From the start, Arc'teryx is obsessed with one thing: performance. They pioneer heat-laminated seams, waterproof zippers, Gore-Tex wizardry. Their jackets don't just protect you from the elements, they make you feel like you could fight the elements. And slowly, the reputation grows. First among climbers, then skiers, then hardcore gearheads. And then, something strange happens. Their jackets start showing up in downtown Tokyo, then Brooklyn, then Paris. Not on mountain peaks, but on people waiting in line for Supreme drops. Why? Because there's something seductive about gear that's made for survival, even if the only thing you're surviving is a drizzle on the L train platform. Arc'teryx had entered a new ecosystem. Hype. Arc'teryx didn't ask to be cool. It just happened. Somewhere along the way, fashion kids and techwear nerds discovered that a jacket made for ice climbing also looked really good under neon lights. Enter Gorpcore. Yes, Gorpcore, named after the trail mix hikers eat. Because if you dress like you're ready to flee civilization at any moment, congratulations, you're Gorpcore. Suddenly, Arc'teryx was everywhere. But not just as gear, as identity. People weren't just wearing the jackets. They were collecting them, naming them, arguing on Reddit about which shell had the best breathability to weight ratio. And that's where the myth gets weirder. There's an entire underground subculture known as the Dead Bird Society. It's not an official club. There are no membership cards. But if you know, you know. They post jacket collections like sneakerheads. They name-drop alpha SVs and beta ARs like Pokemon evolutions. They even have rituals, like shower tests, where someone literally stands under cold water to prove their Arc'teryx shell doesn't leak. That's not style. That's religion. There are memes. There are memes about the memes. One TikTok shows a guy walking in slow motion through a storm. His Arc'teryx jacket perfectly beating rain off like he's untouchable. Caption: when your drip has a higher waterproof rating than your apartment. Another shows a girlfriend trying to hug her boyfriend, but she slides right off because his Arc'teryx shell has too much DWR coating. Yes, waterproof flex has entered the dating world. But why does this hit so hard? Because Arc'teryx does something most brands can't. It builds trust. People know it works. It's not just expensive, it earns its price. And that means when someone wears it in the city, it's not just fashion. It says, I know something you don't. Or at least, I've seen some weather. even if that weather was just a windy subway entrance. Now, where there's hype, there's a resale market. And Arc'teryx? Oh, it's deep. Rare Alpha SVs in discontinued colors go for thousands. There's a guy in Hong Kong who collects only orange Arc shells. He's got 37 of them. No duplicates. Meanwhile, on the darker side, there's a booming fake market. On Grailed, eBay, and even Instagram, people are out here getting finessed by jackets with upside-down logos and fake Gore-Tex tags. One guy bought what he thought was an Alpha AR, wore it in a storm, and ended up wetter than the sidewalk. Legend says he still haunts the Arc'teryx subreddit. But it's not just the fakes that fuel the legend, it's the real ones. Some models are considered holy relics. The 2002 Alpha SV in carbon copy gray? Fashion historians speak of it in hushed tones. The Leaf line, designed for military and tactical units? That's the real endgame gear. We're talking jackets that can survive war zones, and also a disappointing date at a rooftop bar. And then there's the Arc'teryx Valence line, minimalist, silent, like if Batman was into architecture and $900 windbreakers. Valence is for the person who wants to look like they code blockchain. In the Arctic, it's all part of the mythology. Arc'teryx isn't just worn. It's studied, stalked, resold, and sometimes stolen. Yes, stolen. There are rumors, no joke, of people getting dead birds snatched on the street. One TikTok shows a guy running down the block yelling, "He took my Beta LT." We can neither confirm nor deny, but it makes sense. Because Arc'teryx gear isn't just expensive, it's sacred. And in the right circles, wearing one isn't flexing wealth. It's flexing taste, commitment, and maybe just a little bit of delusion. But hey, that's fashion, right? Let's zoom out for a second. Arc'teryx isn't just fashion. It's atmosphere. You see it in music videos, worn by rappers who have never set foot on a mountain. You see it in indie films, the anti-hero brooding in the rain, zipped up tight in a black beta shell. You even see it in protests, climate activists facing off against oil execs in stormproof gear that looks like armor. Arc'teryx has become the uniform of resistance and rebellion. It's what you wear when you're serious, when you don't care about trends, when you want to disappear into the woods or into the crowd. Even the logo, a fossilized bird, feels like a message. Like, I've evolved. Have you? But here's the wild part. The brand never advertised like other brands. No celebrity ambassadors. No fashion week takeovers. No billboards. Just silence. And the silence spread. The more they didn't say, the more people leaned in to listen. Because that's the secret. Arc'teryx sells performance, but also mystery. You don't just buy the jacket. You buy into the story. The myth of the person who could climb that mountain. The fantasy of becoming untouchable, unbothered, undrenched. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. Because in a world where most fashion shouts, Arc'teryx whispers, I'll be here long after the storm. So, if you're still watching, maybe you're not just into gear. Maybe you're into legends. And maybe you're the kind of person who wants to look good. Even at the end of the world. Welcome to the flock. The bird's not dead. It's just waiting for rain. Okay, let's bring it home. Arc'teryx is more than just a jacket. It's a flex, yes, but it's also a philosophy. A weird, waterproof way of saying, I'm built different, literally with Gore-Tex. Because here's the thing. In a world of fast fashion and fake luxury, Arc'teryx gear doesn't beg for attention. It earns it. Every taped seam, every laser-cut zipper, every pocket you didn't know you needed. It all says one thing. You came prepared. Even if all you're doing is walking to the bodega in a light drizzle. But that's the genius. Arc'teryx doesn't care where you go. It just makes sure you get there dry. So whether you're scaling a glacier or just crossing a wet parking lot with existential dread, that jacket, it's with you. And that builds something deeper than hype. It builds loyalty. That's why people post shower tests. That's why strangers nod when they see the bird on your chest. That's why you're here right now watching this video. Because this isn't just about fashion. It's about belonging. There's one more Arc'teryx story I have to tell you. This one's not about resale, not about memes, not even about jackets, really. It's about a man. They called him Raven. No one knew his real name, but every winter for over a decade, he'd appear at the edge of the Whistler backcountry. Always alone, always silent. Locals said he lived off-grid. Cabin somewhere deep in the pines. Solar panels, snowshoes, radio, and a single piece of gear he never took off. A black Arc'teryx Alpha SV. Same one. Year after year. People joked it was stitched to his soul. He never shopped. Never used a phone. But every spring, he'd show up at the village gear shop to sharpen his crampons and refill fuel. They tried to give him a new jacket once. A gift. He refused. Still works, he said, then walked back into the trees. One winter, a storm hit the range hard. Avalanches closed trails. Helicopters grounded. Search and rescue teams were pulled out. But days later, Raven walked into the ranger station, snow in his beard, carrying a teenage snowboarder over his shoulders. Unconscious, but alive. The boy had gone off trail and fallen into a gully. Rescue was impossible. Except, not for him. When asked how he found him, Raven just shrugged. Saw tracks, he said. Then he disappeared again. The kid recovered. Told reporters he'd been freezing to death. Until a black bird came out of the trees and carried him out. People didn't believe it. But in the ranger logbook that night, there's a single entry. Rescue by civilian, wearing Arc'teryx. And to this day, every season, people still swear they see him. At sunrise, at summit, in storms, a shadow in the trees. Same jacket, same silence. They say the bird logo isn't just a fossil. It's a mark, a sign that someone out there doesn't fear the wild. They've made peace with it. And if you ever get lost, you might meet him too. Alright, here's a weird one you probably haven't heard. Back in the early 2000s, Arc'teryx was developing a prototype harness. The kind you'd use to climb a frozen waterfall with one ice axe and a death wish. The design team was testing new materials, but the lab was too cold, and adhesives weren't bonding right. So one of the engineers, apparently fueled by espresso and pure chaos, decided to bake the harness in his kitchen oven. Yes, a climbing harness. In the oven, he wrapped it in foil like a turkey, stuck a meat thermometer in it, and roasted it for 40 minutes at 200 degrees. Why? To test thermal bonding strength between webbing layers and laminates. Totally normal behavior if you're a mad scientist with a climbing habit. Anyway, it worked. The harness didn't melt. The bonds held. And Arc'teryx ended up adapting that heating technique for their actual production process, just with more, industrial ovens. This moment became part of the brand's internal lore. They even nicknamed the test unit the Roastmaster. So next time someone asks why Arc'teryx gear costs more than rent, just tell them, it's oven tested. Gore-Tex souffle. Anyone? Let me tell you a final story. In the wild world of Arc'teryx collectors, there's a legend. A jacket called the Blackbird. Not part of any official line. No product number. Supposedly a one-off prototype tested for extreme alpine rescue units. Jet black, matte, no logo, just the faint outline of the Archaeopteryx fossil pressed into the chest like a ghost print. Only one was ever seen. According to the story, a guy bought it secondhand in Vancouver for $70, thinking it was fake. Wore it for years. Said it never got wet. Ever. People started to notice, hikers, Arc-heads, even Gore-Tex reps. Then one day he posted it online. The Arc community lost its mind. Nobody could find the model in any catalog. Valence didn't claim it. Arc'teryx HQ said it didn't match any production specs. Conspiracies bloomed. Was it a cancelled military prototype? A factory test unit? A ghost drop from an alternate dimension? And then, the jacket vanished. User deleted. Photos gone. No resell. No trace. Some say the guy took it back to the mountains. Others say it rejected him and found a new wearer. One Redditor claims they saw someone wearing it near Banff. In the middle of a blizzard. No hood. No hat. Just the jacket. And they didn't flinch. The myth? Still alive. So if you ever see a jet black Arc'teryx jacket with no label, maybe don't ask questions. Just nod and step aside. Arc'teryx isn't a brand. It's a flock. So if this episode made you laugh, think, or look at your closet differently, tap that like button. And if you want more stories about strange jackets, stylish rebellions, and brands that feel like folklore, you know what to do. Subscribe to the Fashion Code. We don't just tell fashion stories, we decode them. And in case you're wondering, yes, this whole video was filmed during a storm. No leaks, just facts.